Hello, hello, welcome. This is Sachin. This is a beautiful day, and I'm super excited to be sharing this information with you in the hopes that it helps you and resonates with you and helps you live a happier, more productive, and more fulfilling life. Today we're going to be talking about the language of healing. Now, here's the thing with language. Language is one of the things that separates us from all the other animals on the planet. We have a very unique capability of communicating vocally. So with the words that we choose, the words that we say, the words that we think, and the energy we put out into the world, we have a very, very powerful tool to either heal us or rob us of our healing potential. And for those of you in this community, you know that your healing potential is pretty much unlimited, right? So you have this infinite capacity to heal, to regenerate, to restore, to revitalize, to contribute. And a lot of that is going to be based on language that you use. Now, some of it's going to be conscious, so you can create awareness around it. And some of it's going to be unconscious, which means that you're going to have somebody help you create consciousness around it. And that's where giving a spouse or a loved one or a family member or a coworker or team member permission to correct you when they catch you making these unconscious statements that are sabotaging your best health. So I'm going to share with you some of the common things that we hear in our practice. And you can tell me if this is something that you see in your practice, if you're a practitioner, or you can also type in or chime in the ones that you hear, and we can address those as well. So one of the first things that we hear a lot of our patients come to us and say is that I've tried everything. Okay, now that's vastly different than saying I haven't found what's going to help me feel my best yet. So when you use the word yet, it's actually creating a possibility. But when you make a statement that says I've tried everything, well, what you're telling your brain and the conscious body and the unconscious body is that you've exhausted all your opportunities to heal, which means that nothing's going to work. Because if you literally tried everything and nothing's worked for you, then at an unconscious level, you're telling yourself there's nothing's going to fix you. So you have to get that out of your head. So instead of saying, I've tried everything, or I feel like I've tried everything, you can say, I feel like there's something out there that can help me, but I just haven't found it yet. Okay? So very powerful switch in mind frame, very powerful switch in the language. And simple things like that, believe it or not, make all the difference in the world, whether somebody actually gets better or whether somebody stays unwell. So we don't want that for you. We want you to get well. The next one is when people say, my fibromyalgia, my diabetes, my cancer, my heart disease. Essentially when you say that, you're claiming something. So in a way, you're claiming it, but what most people don't realize is they actually created it, okay? And they don't have to claim it if they can uncreate it. So, this disease doesn't belong to you unless you want it to belong to you. And that's how most diseases are. Now, I know some people might say, well, there's things that are incurable, but what I'm hoping for is that these things are curable at some point. So we wouldn't be looking for a cure if we didn't somewhere in our minds or in our hearts believe that a cure existed, right? So why is it that when a cure is present, people are so skeptical? Isn't that what we're looking for in the first place? They're expecting people to find a cure who are looking in the wrong places. Medicine, unfortunately, looks for cures outside of you, whereas lifestyle medicine looks for cures within you, or cures that come from where you come from, which is nature, right? So we look at nature for cures because nature contains the mathematical principles, the software, and also the hardware that's required to heal the human body. Because let's face it, we're built from food, right? And there's an interface between food and spirit and quantum energy, and that's why we have this amazing body in front of us. So very important for you to realize that just like you created a disease, you can do things to uncreate it. And for some people, this is very emotional. They have a hard time accepting this. But when you accept it and when you accept full responsibility, only then do you have full control. If you accept no responsibility, then what that means is you have no control. And that's a pretty bad place to be in when you're in that type of situation. So you never want to say my disease. You would never want to say I got cancer or I got heart disease or I got diabetes. When you reframe that and say I created it and I'm in the process of uncreating it, because you can't ungot something. Okay, that's not even a word, I don't think. So you can't say, I'm gonna ungot this, right? If you got it, but you can uncreate it, okay? So you see, when you use the word got, there's really no good negative to it. And you can't give it to somebody else, so it's not like a package that you got in the mail and then you're gonna give it to somebody else. It's not transferable, right? So many of these chronic diseases are created by, either known factors that are contributing to it. Not all of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. Or unknown factors, which means that it's not always about blaming you. So when somebody says, when I say to a client, let's say, I don't see patients, but let's say I did, and a patient comes in and they say that, well, I'm going to help them reframe it, okay? And I'm going to say, listen, we don't know what caused this just yet. We have no idea what's contributing to it. It could be something in your environment. It could be something, at work. It could be something like mold that you're unaware of. And this is what's contributing to your condition. But we're going to find it, and we're going to help you uncreate it. If your environment is creating it, let's uncreate it through environment. If your nutrition is creating it, let's uncreate it through nutrition. If your mindset is creating it, then let's uncreate it through your mindset. But if you got it, and that's your mind frame, then you're never going to be able to give it to somebody else. You just can't. You can get a cold and give it to somebody else. That's different. But we're talking about chronic diseases and illnesses. So the three things that we covered, the first one is you've got to change the mindset that you've tried everything, because you're unconsciously telling yourself there's no cure. You've got to stop saying, and you stop saying that, and what you say instead is, I haven't found, or I'm in the hopes of finding something that works for me, or I haven't found what's working for me yet. So you can reframe that really easily. Never say my disease, never say my heart disease, my cancer, because it doesn't belong to you, okay? It's something that you've created instead of got, and now it's your opportunity to uncreate it. So what I've typically found is that people who take this type of responsibility and control over their health are the ones that get much better outcomes. Now, sometimes, sometimes we feel like victims, and that's okay, but that can't be our permanent state, right? It's okay to feel like that, or question things and wonder why, this happened and how this happened, and learn a lesson from it if there's something to learn in there. And then we move on, right? We start looking at and asking ourselves questions about, how can I uncreate this? How can I undo this? Because, I'm taking responsibility that I played a part in this, at least, right? You don't always have to say that it was completely your fault, because sometimes there's things that are unconscious to you that are occurring. So this type of languaging and reframing is super important. Another thing that's important is to avoid certain words, okay? So some people will use words that are ambiguous. And one of the things that, my trainer and I, we were watching a commercial, or he was telling me about something, and this tagline was to stay in the know, okay? And so if you think about that, it was something related to health. I can't remember. Oh, it was 23andMe, right? So 23andMe, their tagline is stay in the know. Now, if you look at the spelling of it, then it's K-N-O-W. But if you listen to the vibration of it, it also means no, as in stay in the know. Like, no, I'm not going to change my health. No, I'm not going to do this. So it actually has a very negative connotation to it from a vibrational perspective. And again, that's what words are. They're simply vibration. Through words, I can organize my body. I can organize emotions. I can organize structure in my body just by the words that I use in my mind and the words that I use outwardly. We know this because I can say something to my wife or my son, and simply by vibrating air using words, okay, I can change the physiology of somebody. And if I can change the physiology of somebody, I can change the structure of somebody. I can determine whether they're going to be digesting their food properly or not. I can determine, are they going to be building healthy tissues, or are they going to be breaking down healthy tissues? So I can regulate somebody else's physiology just by using words. So what makes anyone think that the words that we use towards ourselves are not doing the exact same thing? And certainly they are. So part of your healing journey is going to be using the right words, using them appropriately, using them like an author would use their pen, right? Using them with absolute precision. Here's another thing to understand. The way the mind works, the way you have to imagine this, and this is why I think coding is so important for children and even adults, because it changes the way you think. When you give a computer specific instructions, when you code that computer with the instructions, you're very specific with the directions that you give it. Okay, you actually give it directions, and the computer miraculously follows the exact directions that you give it in a very predictable way. 100 times out of 100, it's going to do the exact same thing. So, but if you put the wrong code in there, okay, then 100 times out of 100, it's going to do the same thing. But if that code produces the wrong outcome, you're going to keep producing the wrong outcome. So I always encourage anyone, if you have young children, get them into coding. If you're an adult and you never took computer programming, then I want you to at least entertain the idea of coding games. You can get them on your computer. You can buy them in like, stores. Maybe Toys R Us is not the best place, but there's certain stores where they sell like Mindbender games and things like that, so you can get them there. And Mastermind Toys here in Ontario is a place where you can get games like this. So coding teaches your brain how to think. It teaches your brain how to give very specific and exact directions, and these specific and exact directions create predictable outcomes. So one of the first things that we would work on with any client in our office is we would work on cleaning up their language. Okay, so we actually have a session called Mindset Mastery as part of our programs, where we help people clean up their conscious and their unconscious language, and we can pick up on these things very, very quickly. And once the patient becomes hyper aware, or once you become hyper aware of this, then you can actually do something about it. It actually takes a conversation for really somebody to understand your unconscious language. So it's hard to do it in an environment like this. But if you ever caught somebody using bad language against themselves, or if you've caught them using language that's producing the opposite of what they say they want to produce, just type in a heart, or type in a like. Let's show these people some love, because they're doing it unconsciously. They don't even know that this is a problem for them. And it requires us paying attention a little bit more closely to our own words, paying attention a little bit more closely to the words that people speak, and also giving each other permission to correct these things, if we catch somebody making these types of mistakes. And also, being open and receptive to the input and feedback that you get. Some other words that I avoid are words like unbelievable. So I would never say, you've got to come and see us, our doctors are unbelievable. I would not, because that means the opposite of what you want to say. Another word is incredible. So people will say, oh, you got to go see this person, they're incredible. Well, what's the opposite of incredible? It's actually credible. So again, the English language, I believe, is purposely semantically incorrect, and that sabotages people from living their best life. An example I use in some of my workshops is a video that was done, a great video actually, by the Heart and Stroke Foundation. And the website at the end was makehealthlast.com. And so if you look at that and you look at it as a computer, it's going to prioritize health last instead of first. So I was curious, and I was wondering, I wonder who owns makehealthfirst.com. And guess what? To my surprise, but not to my surprise, nobody. So it was there available for me to purchase. So makehealthfirst.com is actually owned by the Living Proof Institute, because we want to make health one of your first priorities, because if we can make it your first priority, then everything else becomes so much better. Your health is unique because it's the foundation of your life, but it's also the ceiling of your life. So how successful you are in life, how good you are as a parent, how good you are as a business owner, how much you can serve your community and contribute into the world, all of that is going to be, foundationally supported by your health, and the ceiling of how good you can get at those things is going to be based on your health and your energy, your vitality, your mental clarity, your sharpness. And in order for you to have that, the first thing that you need to have is to have the right language. If you're listening to this and you see and in your heart that there's a greater potential in you, there's a greater calling in you, that there's still a better life ahead of you, but you also recognize that if somebody were to support you and help you and identify these unconscious patterns, and also identify nutrient deficiencies and toxicities that you might have, and coach you through this entire process so that you could, be in it to win it. You only get one chance at this life. There might be another life waiting for you afterwards, but at this life, you only get one chance. And so, our objective is to always help people make the most. I mean, everyone that we work with on our team is doing that exact same thing. We're all constantly in a state of growth, trying to live out our best life, and we're learning at a pace that very few teams are able to learn at, because we're all highly committed to our own personal journeys and our own personal self-development, and everyone that works on our team has been a patient of the process. So they've witnessed firsthand what it means to change your language here, what goes in here, what goes in here, what goes in here, what we put on our bodies, what we eliminate from our bodies, right? All of what comes out of us, all of these things make a huge difference. And it's unfortunate, but not many people are looking at this. And so when patients come to us, those are the low-hanging fruit. Those are the areas that we work through, and we start seeing, what seems to be miraculous results. Very few people who come to us, even those who feel like they've tried everything, even those who've been to other functional medicine practitioners or naturopaths or chiropractors, acupuncturists, there's nothing wrong with any of those people. They've helped millions of people. But when you feel like those things aren't working, a lot of times it's some of the things that we talked about today. It's the language, it's the environment, it's the advanced testing, it's the coaching, it's all of these things coming together. So with that being said, I wish you all an amazing weekend ahead. I hope this helped you, and I hope this inspires you in some way. The best is yet to come, and I highly encourage you to live your best life. Thanks. Have an awesome weekend.